Call the council meeting to order. Please be seated. Motion to reconvene the open council meeting. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Proclamations. The first proclamation is going to be read by Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Your Worship. Proclamation, International Day of the Pink. Whereas the city of Burnaby recognized the dignity and the worth of all people in all of their diversity, and whereas youth are especially recognized for their commitment to eliminate discrimination in their community, and whereas the Day of Pink is the International Day to stand against bullying, discrimination, homophobia, and transphobia, and whereas we celebrate youth who are taking initiatives to stop discrimination in their communities, making our world a better place. Now therefore, Derek Corrigan, Mayor of Burnaby, does hereby proclaim April 13, 2016 as International Day of Pink in the city of Burnaby.
Thank you, Councillor Wang, and you'll notice I'm wearing my pink today. All right, the second proclamation will be read by Councillor Dhaliwal.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's a pleasure to read this proclamation on your behalf, proclamation on St. George's Day. Whereas our systems of governance, law, economy, procedural freedoms, and the English language originated in England, and whereas English people throughout the world celebrate and will gather on April 23, 2016 to come together to celebrate this special patron saint of England, and whereas those British traditions remain an important part of our heritage and daily life of the benefit of all the citizens of Burnaby, and whereas the English community of Burnaby and throughout British Columbia continue to make valuable contributions to our city and province, and whereas England and the United Kingdom is an important ally to Canada, a valued trading partner with Western Canada and particularly to Vancouver, and whereas we, in the multicultural city of Burnaby, respect the importance of patriotism and historic events to the English residents and family members in our city, and whereas the citizens of Burnaby and those of English heritage throughout the world mark this day with civic and festive celebrations to revere St. George, the patron saint of England, for his courage and to honor all good things English. Now therefore, Derek R. Corrigan, Mayor of Burnaby, does hereby proclaim April 23, 2016 as St. George's Day in the city of Burnaby. Signed, Derek R. Corrigan.
And I'll try not to comment on the ironies of an Irish mayor proclaiming while a Punjabi councillor reads. All right, a motion to adopt the minutes of the open council meeting held on April the 4th, 2016. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. A motion to adopt the minutes of the parcel tax toll review panel held on March the 30th, 2016. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. And the delegation is Citizen Support Services Annual Report, and the speaker is Ms. Ann Waller. Ms. Waller, please come forward.
That's fine. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for having us this evening. Thank you very much for having us this evening, as this is the beginning of National Volunteer Week, and we love to celebrate that week. We're thrilled that so many volunteers have come tonight to support us, and I would like to hand over the report to Michelle Wilson.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, Mayor Corrigan, City Councillors, Directors, all of our volunteers and guests. We've started a movement in Burnaby, and it's contagious. Citizen support started it, and Better at Home is adding to it. This week, as you know, is National Volunteer Week, and we celebrate and honor our volunteers who are the root of a strong community. Our volunteers inspire us on a daily basis. They have contributed over 24,000 hours of service to the community this past year. To list just a few examples, these volunteers shopped over 3,000 grocery orders for housebound seniors, welcomed and assisted over 9,000 parents and infants at various health and immunization clinics, and transported more than 1,400 seniors to weekly social lunches. Thank you to all of our volunteers. All teams need great leaders, and we are fortunate to have that in spades with the guidance and leadership of Deputy City Manager, Mr. Chad Turpin, and our department's administrator, Ms. Ann Waller. Citizen Support Services is the lead agency for the Burnaby Better at Home program. Through this program, Burnaby Better at Home has provided seniors with over 3,200 house cleaning and laundry services in 2015. And with Burnaby Community Service volunteer drivers, we provided over 446 rides to medical appointments as well. Because of Better at Home, our contractors have informed me that between the two home support agencies, approximately 70 to 80 jobs have been created, with most of these new positions being filled by women and new immigrants. 2015 saw Burnaby receiving the largest grant in the province, and I'm happy to report that Burnaby has received an increase again for 2016. Despite this additional funding, though, we still have over 90 people on the wait list for the housekeeping service. The statistics as it relates to funding and outputs are important, but what I would like to emphasize with you this evening is something that we don't report on, and that's the impact of the outreach and advocacy piece. We have on a daily basis stories whereby Citizen Support Services and Burnaby Better at Home have become an invaluable bridge for those most vulnerable. The volunteer driver that notified us that her client seemed to be slurring her speech more, couldn't swallow her food, had lost weight since her last ride, overall was just not well. We were able to contact the case manager and get the senior immediate help. The housekeeper that notified us that the diabetic senior had not had their medication and was living in an apartment with broken glass and dog feces on the floor. We were able to call the doctor, get the medication delivered, and make a referral to Fraser Health. That senior is now connected with a case manager and a social worker. The volunteer driver that reported the cancer patient she was driving to the bone scan appointment had no food and was very weak. We told her to take the client to emergency, and she was checked in for severe dehydration. The senior is now connected with all the resources that she needs. The volunteer that called us to say her client disclosed her partner was planning to commit suicide that day and she was afraid. We were able to notify the Burnaby RCMP and the case manager and ensure that immediate action was taken. Shocking stories, really, but there are everyday stories, sadly. This is where Citizen Support Services, Better at Home, Fraser Health, the community partners, contractors, emergency services, social workers, and our volunteers come together to make a difference in the community. We believe what makes Burnaby unique and a success is because we are so connected and work together very effectively, I might add. I've had the opportunity to meet with coordinators from around the province, and I can assure you that what we have here in Burnaby is not the norm. It is our wish that we continue along this path that we are on, building stronger bridges and thus a stronger, healthier community. With your continued support, Mayor and Council, we will continue to make a difference and be a shining example of what can be accomplished when everyone works together for the better. The movement is happening, and we thank you for doing your part and supporting and allowing us to do ours. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being here with us tonight, and I see that you've got a number of your volunteers here with you. Please stand up, all you volunteers. You know, Ann, it's wonderful to see a group of volunteers that is so reflective of our community, the diversity of our community, and the reality that each and every one of us needs to do what we can to help our neighbor. And as was pointed out, this is a very unusual service to be provided by a city. Not many cities do what we do, which is to help coordinate volunteer services and to take a small group of employees and leverage this massive amount of volunteer hours that are given back to people in Burnaby. It really is a great investment, and it's not one we tend to crow about. We tend to hide our light under a bushel, that we do this very quietly on an ongoing basis. But it is important to recognize that these volunteers would not get the opportunity to serve in this way if it wasn't for the city taking a very active role in ensuring that we coordinate, that we facilitate, that we make sure that people feel safe in the environment of volunteering, but even more importantly, that they know they're appreciated by the city and appreciated by the people that they serve. So it is a tremendous asset to the city, and one that we should all be very proud of. And when we talk about a very good use of taxpayers' dollars, this is the epitome of that kind of discussion, because it takes a relatively small amount of dollars and it changes them in to thousands of hours of help in the city. And I think that is a very wise decision that has been in place for a long period of time. And I want to compliment your staff for their dedication and willingness to go the extra mile to ensure that the city of Burnaby does as much as it can to be able to support the people that live here in our city. You know, I often point out that we're not responsible for social services, and yet much of the burden ends up being pushed onto us anyway to try to deal with these complicated problems. The only way we can do it is by people like this standing up and taking responsibility for their own community and their own neighborhood. And it really is an opportunity for us as council to say thank you to the volunteers. Thank you for the great work that you do. It is very much appreciated, and I know you don't do it for that reason, but from the point of view of your fellow citizens, it is a very necessary resource. I consistently am very proud that Burnaby proves itself to be a community of volunteers, one of the best in the country on an ongoing basis. And it's one of the reasons that we remain what I like to refer to as a small town in a big city. So with that, I'll move to Councillor McDonnell. Councillor
Thank you,
McDonnell.
Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. It's it's one I always enjoy listening to, and that. In my background, I was with United Way Board for 7 years and chaired it, and I've been on the campaign cabinet now, my 5th year. But we can't do it unless we got volunteers. And last year alone in Canada, we had over 2 billion hours. So if you think about it, that's over 2,000 million hours. But for people who don't understand what a billion is, it's a lot of hours. I mean, the country couldn't survive. We couldn't survive if we didn't have the volunteers, because you just can't afford to tax people enough to replace what the volunteers are doing, nor would we want to. I think it's a great avenue for young people to get involved, and I've really been encouraged this last several years, because I get out a lot to different events, and when I look even in the crowd, we have a lot of younger people here today starting to get involved in volunteering. And we know some of the challenges we're going to be facing, especially with the aging population and that. When I was a firefighter, we would get some repeat calls to customers, and quite often it was a senior that was isolated and didn't have any social contacts. And they just wanted somebody to talk to, you know, and you try to be polite, but at the same time try to explain we'd always try to make the contact so we could get somebody to go in to see them. Because sometimes that's all it takes. It's just going to say, can I have a coffee with you, and sit down and talk. And when I talk to young people, they say that they can learn so much by talking to the seniors. I think that's what it's all about. I think that's the benefit they get back, the joy they get back, and the joy of giving. So to you and your organization, thank you, and especially to you young people coming along, because it's nice to see that we still believe in volunteerism. And the younger you start, the longer you're going to be with it. In United Way, we say if we can get a donor for 3 years, we got them for life. And if you can get a volunteer for 3 years, you're going to have them for life. They're always going to be volunteering because the rewards they get back, they feel you can't measure it in dollars. But the self-satisfaction and the rewards, helping somebody else is just so much that it's really grateful. So thank you all, and thank you to everybody in the audience.
Councillor Dhaliwal.
Your Worship, I do want to take a couple of seconds to thank the volunteers who are here tonight, and thank you, of course, our staff as well, who put a lot of effort into coordinating and facilitating these very important services. Your Worship, I see many familiar faces in the crowd here. I know this is just a sample of volunteers. It's not everyone who does help here, but I see them more than one place, not just here. I see them out at our centers. I see them in the community. So it's quite satisfying to see that we live in a community where you go out of your way to help others. This isn't done without some sacrifice. You take time away from your family and occasionally time away from something that you would like to do. But instead you're out there helping others. That makes our city the best city, or at least one of the best cities around. I think as Councillor McNell said, it perhaps is in our nature as Canadians. We're out there, 12.5 million Canadians, as was read by Mayor last week, I believe, the National Volunteer Week. 12.5 million Canadians who volunteer, not just in one organization, and I see many of you volunteer in more than one or a bit more than one organization. We see you at the hospitals, see you at the hospices, we see you at our community centers, we see you in all the sport that we have, you name it. We have volunteers at every time we turn around. We couldn't obviously do it without your help, particularly delivering many of our city services. We rely on volunteers quite a bit, whether it's the Burnaby Village Museum or the Art Gallery, or many a time that we have people serving right throughout the organization. So thank you very much for being here. Certainly appreciate the time you put in. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. I was just thinking earlier today, when I first got elected to council was about the time that the Fraser Health annexed Burnaby's health department. And I remember, I think it was Mr. Turpin made a presentation on why we as a city should keep this small department and not let it go to Fraser Health or let it disband. And I mean, when you're new, it's pretty innocuous. You listen and you put your hand up and you're not really sure what you're agreeing with. But after the 20-something years I've been on council, you see the impact that this small committee or division of the city now and the hundreds of volunteers and the impact it makes on our community. We hear about people volunteering, but I think this kind of volunteering is sort of an A-level volunteer because you're actually impacting people's lives, the quality of life, the length of their life, and the ability to actually extend their lives. And I think that's a real positive. I do have one question though. I quite often frequent what used to be the IGA at Old Orchard, and I know that used to be one of your shopping buddy hangouts. And
I'm going to ask Geraldine, one of our staff, who you all know, to come forward and she'll explain the change there.
I'm Geraldine Wall. I coordinate the Shop by Phone grocery program. What question did you have about IGA?
Well, I'm just curious because the IGA was closing, and I know it's now a Save On Foods, or
not open yet.
It will be one of the Save On Food family. I'm just wondering, is that going to impact your program?
Yes. We thought we could work something out with Save On Foods to continue our program with them. However, they're mostly into online shopping, which didn't it just wasn't conducive to the way we run our program. So Safeway at the corner of Willingdon and Hastings has graciously offered their store for our program.
Awesome.
So tomorrow will be our 5th week, and so far it's working really, really well.
Great, that's good to hear.
Thank you. Councillor Wayne.
Yes, thanks, Anne and your team gave this wonderful presentation. I think just mentioned the department is very small, but with a big heart. And I very appreciate so many volunteers, to provide your services to the community. So, and we're happy, this spirit also carry on. So we have many young volunteers to join this big, community and to provide their services to the community. So today we also see the new, very new youth organization they call Love Caravan, who is also focused on providing services to the seniors. So they come here to learn from our community and also want to be part of our community. So very happy to see this one carry on. Very happy and welcome all those youth volunteers here. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wang. Councillor Calandino.
Thank you, Your Worship. As one of the volunteers sitting on this side instead of that side today, I just want to confirm the words that you expressed at the beginning about the incredibly valuable work that the Citizen Support Services does, not simply in the community centers organizing drives for the luncheons, but now with the Better at Home program that we've taken up some 2 years ago. And by experience, they call me when I have some time to drive some seniors to medical services. Unfortunately, some of my council duties interfere with my volunteering, so I may have to cancel some of my council duties in the future. But just talking to those seniors who are being provided this service and the satisfaction that they have and the relief that they have not to have to always depend on the taxi or even the bus service that is not always reliable. Having somebody going to their home and picking them up and knowing that they can be taken back home in a timely manner. And most of these seniors obviously have all kinds of issues such as mobility, visibility issues, hearing problems, etc., and all sorts of other health issues. And the seniors are the ones that really appreciate the service that the volunteers. And I must say now that some people are watching us on TV that the Citizen Support Service needs those early retirees, 55 to 65 or 75, to join the volunteer group of the Burnaby Citizen Support Services, because there is a tremendous need out there for more drivers, more phone companions, or more shoppers on the phone, etc., etc. So the need is still there, even though there are many volunteers, as you see here, and many that are not here yet. But the volunteers are always needed.
Thank you. Good point, Councillor Calandino. And that's something important for people at home to know, is that we always need more volunteers. But also, if you are lonely, if you would like to get out and meet people, these are great people to meet. And when you work with other people on doing something positive, often you develop lifelong friendships. And I'm sure, wouldn't you agree with me, is the friendships that you've developed through volunteering are going to be friendships that last you a lifetime. And I know for those of you at home who are thinking, I've got a little extra time, I'd like to make some new friends, you're not going to do better than volunteering to be able to come out and help others, because it will give you not only a personal sense of satisfaction, but it'll give you an opportunity to meet people that are just like you, nice people that want to give back. Councillor Kang.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you so much, Anne, and everyone else for being here today. Volunteers are really the backbones of our community, and we really appreciate you. I see in the crowd one of our friends, the Kushiro Cup winner, Ajla, or Kaher. Kaher. And so I think at the time you were 87, you must be 70. Now you're about 80 some odd years, but 80 years and young. But all of us, no matter what the age you are, we are such valuable assets to the community. And volunteers are not paid, not because we're worthless, but because we're invaluable. You can't pay volunteers for the amount of hours that they have volunteered into our community. And so when young people come to me from high school, they say, well, Counselor, I need to fulfill my number of hours in high school. Can you help me fulfill it? All they're looking for is a number of hours to fill in their resume. But what happens after that when they get into volunteering is after high school, they continue to volunteer because they found passion and they found friends within volunteering. And that's the power of volunteering. It's not being paid, but it's feeling the love, it's feeling the fulfillment. And the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of volunteering. And I just love that quote. New immigrants, they ask me, well, how do we get to know our community? My English is really poor. I don't know any friends. So I said, well, why don't you start by volunteering? First, use your native language, and then stretch out to practicing your new language, and then making new friends. And this is how they become, you know, part of our community. It's because they're volunteers. And volunteers, just that very special word called friends for life. And even everyday working people like Councillor Calendino and myself, sometimes in our monotonous days of working on council, we like to be out there working with people with passion to build a progressive city. So I really want to especially say thank you to every single person here for your countless hours of dedication and love for the community and love for the people all around you. Because one question that I ask myself, if I don't do it, who will? If you don't do it, who will? So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, your commitment, and also sacrificing the time away from your family to give to others. So thank you so much, volunteers.
And on that note, we greatly appreciate your annual report and the opportunity we've had to compliment our volunteers and our staff department. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you all next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, a motion to receive the correspondence. Right, a motion to receive the correspondence. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Following items have been placed on the council agenda tonight. A is a request from the Stony Creek Community Council to post lawn signs for the purpose of publicizing their community fair. And the engineering staff have said they support the idea and are working with them on appropriate locations and number of signs to be placed on city boulevards. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Item B. This is a request from the Burnaby Potters Guild to place temporary signs on city property to advertise their annual summer and fall shows and sales at the Capitol Hill Community Hall in 2016. Again, the engineering department is supportive, and they are working with the group to ensure proper locations for the signs. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Motion to resolve into a committee of the whole to consider reports. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. The first report is Social Planning Committee. Councillor Valco.
Worship, this is in regards to Local Government Awareness Week for 2016. On behalf of the committee, I'd move the recommendation. Very briefly, Your Worship, this is a program instituted by the UBCM, the Union of BC Municipalities, and it's a program basically to inform and educate citizens throughout the province in regards to local government and what it does. This year, Local Government Awareness Week is taking place May the 17th to the 23rd. And Burnaby's participated since 2011. If you take a look at Section 2.2, and these are the 4 activities that the City of Burnaby will be promoting. One is the City will declare a proclamation in regards to Local Government Awareness Week. We'll have a heritage scavenger hunt. I'm sure Councillor Jordan will be happy to see this. The city's new heritage website, our staff will put forward some questions, and folks can get on there and do a little scavenger hunt. We'll also be promoting public Wi-Fi, our public Wi-Fi network in our various facilities throughout the city, and let people know about the locations. And also there's the Be Involved portal, which will be refreshed, and a new interface and update for the information will be presented on that. So all in all, Your Worship, we're participating, and May the 17th to the 23rd. So.
Thank you. Councillor Dhaliwal.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe many of the proposed theme this year or the activities that are outlined would help our citizens really get a better appreciation of what kind of services and programs are offered in the city, as well as just what the local governments are all about. Your Worship, I was wondering if I can leave some idea with the staff, not for this year, but probably for future years, Your Worship. It'd probably be a good idea to have a sort of some description, some maybe brochure or something, the actual services provided by the cities around the region in our country. This is probably a best-kept secret. For a lot of people do not understand how their lives are affected on a daily basis, what happens in the cities and villages and towns across the country. Most people would pay a lot of attention to federal government's election. They pay a lot of attention to provincial government attention, yet very little takes place on their daily lives that are affected, not as much as what the cities and the villages do. It would be good to explain the services that we provide and put in context of the taxes they pay. Yes, we know it's a very touchy subject. It's a very stressful thing to talk about taxes, but the local taxes are for what we get from when we compare ourselves to the federal government and provincial government and look at the services we provide. And, you know, on the average of $10 a day, which households are providing, and for $10 a day, what do you get in return on a property basis, basically? That is the water, sewer, the garbage, the roads. I can go on, the parks, the libraries, the police, the fire, all those things. Trying to put that in context of what you get for a $10 to $12 expenses a day, I mean. And you can spend that kind of money easily if you go out there and have a couple of cups of coffee and one more thing, and that's basically gone your $10. So I know it's difficult for people to put those $10 out every day because it does add up. But we had to put that in context of what services and what programs cities provide in return. There seems to be always a criticism that I find every time we talk about this time of the year. People are talking about how their taxes, their property taxes are going up. Every time I read something in the paper, say, well, I lived there all my life, I pay taxes. Yes, we all do, but very little appreciation of the things we provide. I think would be good to do during that week. Give that awareness. Also, give people some reason to come out and vote. And when the election happens, 25 to 30% goes to show most of the cities right across the country. That's pretty well standard. Goes to show that people perhaps don't put as much into the value of a local third order of government, and I think that needs to be aware. So this is in the right direction, Your Worship. I think local governments need to be the profile needs to be lifted up a little bit more.
Thank you. Good suggestion, and we'll talk to staff about what they can do to try to accentuate the information that we provide about the role that we play, the very important role that we play. And what I find, honestly, and it's ironic, is that we often are looked upon to do more than what we already do, is that we very seldom are criticized for effectively doing the job that we have. And in fact, often we're complimented for what a good job we do of the things that are our responsibility. Where we get criticized is where we don't assume the responsibilities of other orders of government. And the reason I find it ironic is because The reason we don't is that there's a limitation on what people can do with property taxes. You can't be expected to do everything on the basis of property taxes. And so we deliver a considerable amount of services and very, very good value in a transparent way for the tax dollars that people pay on their property. But it must continue to be related to their property to be valid. And oftentimes the expectations of your city are very, very high. So it is a difficult thing to do, and I think sometimes going out and pointing to people how many things we do take on can help to alleviate some of the requests we get that we should extend ourselves into areas that are very much the responsibility of those other orders of government who have access to a far greater range of taxes, whether it's income tax, or it's sales tax, or it's corporate taxes, or any one of a number of other ways in which they're able to access the taxpayer. Councillor Calandino.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I concur with the suggestion that Councillor Dhaliwal said in your corroboration of that. But I'm wondering, I recall last year when we had the paver celebration outside, we also had an open house of City Hall, and also there was an open house at the Works Yard. I wonder whether those two activities and stuff would consider and incorporate during the Local Government Awareness Week in the future, because obviously that would be a bit of promoting of what local governments do.
I think we're looking at trying to take that on every second year as a task for our staff. It's a big job, and we tied it into Public Works Week in the last instance, didn't we? I think it was
September, the City Hall open house.
Yeah, so we did it in City Hall, and that's something we can discuss again. It's a big commitment to take on that additional responsibility, and we'll see whether or not we can do it every year or maybe every second year.
If it's every second year, if it's incorporated with the Local Government Week, it would be good.
Well, we'll look at the appropriate timing, but a good suggestion. Both of them are good suggestions to be considered by staff. All right, and with that, are you ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, and carried. City Manager's Report, Item 1. This is to impose the 2016 Local Services Tax Bylaw for works completed between June the 1st, 2015 and May the 31st, 2016. Ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item 2. This is to obtain council authority for city staff and/or agents to enter onto the property at 6751 6th Street to bring the property into compliance. Questions called. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Item 3. This is the building permit tabulation report, March 1st to March 31st. Provides council with information on construction activity as reflected in the building permits. Questions called. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Eileen Daly Pool, we have a mechanical renovation and upgrade, and this is to award a construction contract.
Move the recommendation.
Second the motion.
Councillor McDonnell.
Yeah, question to Parks. Would there be a downtime while they switch that over, and how long would it be if there is?
Your Worship, I apologize, I don't know that information. It's been done, the contract is being administrated through perhaps Mr. Gauss, you have the answer, or I could provide that in a memo.
Okay.
He's not volunteering, so I'd go for the memo. All right, you ready for the question? All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Bylaws, Councillor Dhaliwal. Oh, wait a minute, a motion to rise and report. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. A motion to adopt the report of the committee. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Now bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship. First, second, and third reading. I move that bylaw number 13591 be now introduced and read 3 times.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, opposed, carried.
For reconsideration and final adoption, I move that bylaw number 13590 be now reconsidered and finally adopted signed by the mayor and clerk, and the corporate seal affixed thereto.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, and carried. Is there any new business? Seeing none, Councillor Jordan.
Well, at purple pages. I just wanted to make sure that the last item, J, on the purple pages, and someone was emailing in regards to complaints about the interchange between the freeway and Caribou, and I just hope that someone can get back to them and tell them that they're complaining to the wrong order of government.
Right.
We didn't build that exchange. It's not our fault.
To my point exactly.
You think we had that planned?
Right, no, we didn't build the highway, sorry.
No, we didn't build the highway, no.
All right, staff, you'll take care of that and make sure there's a response. All right, Councillor Volko.
I wasn't going to speak on any of these, but then I took a second look at it, and there's that item F, the letter from Judy Darcy, the MLA from New Westminster, in regards to pay for plasma clinics. Apparently, there's a discussion going on right now for the potential of setting up pay for plasma clinics. I'm just wondering to staff, I don't need an answer now, but is this something that if we really had a mind to, could we prohibit one of these things in our town? I don't need an answer right now, but I just think the whole preposition is ridiculous about people donating blood for pay. I mean, if there was an opportunity just to send a message that at least here we're not looking forward to having a facility like that. I almost equate it to these payday loan outfits and massage parlors and everything else. I throw them in that same grab bag. If we could prevent one of them showing up in town, I'd love it. Well, we can't prohibit what is a legal industry, and so I can answer that one quickly for you, is that if it's legal, we can't prohibit it. But I think there's ample room for discussion by citizens as to whether they agree or disagree with payment for blood. Is that we have, over the course of years, been very successful in having volunteer blood programs, but it's obvious that they're under greater pressure. And the one way to be able to avoid this is to encourage people to get out and donate blood. You know, and for those of us who are older, it's more difficult, but anybody who is young and not donating blood, they are not doing everything they can to be a good citizen. So if you are young and healthy, donate your blood. I did when I was a young man and was very proud of it, wore my pin on my lapel very proudly, and if you can get out and donate blood, do so. I encourage my children to donate blood. It is so important to ensure that we have enough blood in our blood bank to be able to support those people who are in desperate need. And we as a city, though this isn't one of our functions, it relates to provincial government functions, is that it is always our function to encourage people to be good citizens. And it is crucially important that as our city changes, as our demographics change, that our young people take responsibility for ensuring that our blood bank is full. And it is also important that all new Canadians realize this is part of being a Canadian citizen, to ensure that you're contributing in every way and ensuring that you, in fact, not only give blood, but that you become an organ donor, and that you ensure that if, God forbid, there should be an accident, that your organs can help someone else to live a full life. So I appreciate you bringing up that point, and I hope that all of us encourage people to get out there and to give blood and to become organ donors. Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you, Worship. And just following up on what Councillor Volko said, is that people have to remember the blood scandal wasn't that many years ago, and a lot of people died because of the blood contamination and stuff that had happened. And if you get into these clinics where people can walk in and pay, they're not going to necessarily tell the truth on what condition they may have that would stop them from donating. If they need the money, they'll do it. So I think it's important that we because of that scandal, the Red Cross and the government put in the rules in place now to prevent that from happening again, and I don't see that happening if you get into private clinics. I mean, it's an easy way out, but it's a wrong way to get it, as far as I'm concerned.
Councillor Johnson.
Just on that point, Your Worship, and just a question to staff. We used to often see the blood donor clinics in the lobby out here. Have we had one there lately?
The last one was what held the Bill Copeland Center.
Okay, good. We used to have them here as people would
Yeah.
come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, we still have them.
Taxes in your blood.
Yeah.
All right, and on that note, a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. Thank you very much to council and staff. Thank you to everyone who was with us tonight.